As I bring up the next point, I think this is going to be really controversial, but there are no grease zerks anywhere on this mower. Not a single one. This machine has a 3-year unlimited hour warranty. That this is a floating front axle. If I lifted the front of this up in the air, that axle can pivot like this. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and I'm standing in front of the best zero-turn mower on the market. Now, I know that's a really strong statement because there are a lot of great companies making a lot of great mowers. But I've been looking at the market for a while. I've tested out a bunch of different mowers here on my property and at trade shows and tried to do as much market research as I could. And from everything I've looked at, I think this is the best machine out there. I want to start off by saying that I'm not affiliated with this company. They're not paying me. I don't get to keep the mower, nothing like that. It's here for me to use, and actually I'm supposed to try to sell it to you guys. This is a demo mower that they send out when people are looking to buy a mower. This has been used as a demo, and if you want to buy it, I've got a special deal where you can get a great price on this mower. I have it until someone buys it. I've actually got a promotional offer to try to save you guys a little bit of money if you want to order one of these from my local dealership, which is known as the Tractor Yard. They've got a great deal that we'll talk about later. But first I want to talk about a few things that explain why I like this mower so much. Most of you have probably seen this before by now, the zero-turn mower with a steering wheel. And when I first saw these zero turns with the steering wheel, I thought, that's goofy, why would they do that? And then I kept seeing them, kept thinking about it, and I said, you know, if having a steering wheel on a zero-turn mower was such a good idea, then all the other companies would do it. Well, I found out today that they can't. There's a very strong patent on the system that allows this to operate and perform the way it does. And one of the other major mowing companies tried to replicate a different version of this with a little bit of tweak, and they were blocked by that patent. So the reason that the only Cub Cadet makes this type of mower is because they're the only one with the right to. And I want to show you today why it's a definitively better system to use this steering wheel than the two handles. I don't even think it's debatable, to be honest. So I have a lot to say in this video. I'm going to talk and wear your eardrums out. But first, let's do some mowing. It's probably more interesting to you guys than listening to me. So I'm going to take it up to my normal testing area, my front yard. We'll do it first because that's where I've tested all the other mowers. But then I'm going to mow the whole property, film a bunch of it. I've got some hillsides, ditches, all kinds of stuff. We'll film some of that, and then I'll walk you through why I think this is such a superior design. Because I've published a lot of lawn mowing videos in the past, I know what kind of comments I'm likely to get. Everyone is generally going to criticize the way you turn the mower at the end of your rows. Some people feel like the best thing to do is make a very quick 180 turn and just zip back the other way, which has a tendency to tear your grass a little bit. Then other people will make a 3-point turn, even though they're using what is called a zero-turn mower. The whole point of it is supposed to be that you don't have to make a 3-point turn. Well, the thing about this mower is it allows you to make a 180-degree turn but it does not tear the grass like any other zero-turn mower would. So this is my hay field, and you know, it's all 4 or 5 foot tall. We're mowing hay or cutting hay and baling hay next week. But right now, this patch right here, the first 6 feet of the hay field, I mowed with that Bobcat mower 2 or maybe even 3 months ago. So this hasn't been touched in that amount of time, and it'll be a great test for pushing the limits. What's like the tallest material you're ever gonna mow? And this is probably it. I want to make a confession here too. When I say this is the best mower on the market, I strongly believe that today. But I'm also kind of like a puppy dog. When I see a piece of equipment and I find a salesman who's been with the company for 20 plus years and really knows his stuff, and he makes a passionate case to me about what's great about this, I get excited. And maybe there's a chance that 2 months from now, another company lets me demo their mower and I get equally impressed with it. But today, man, I think this thing is it. And I think there are reasons this machine is it that nobody can copy. So what we're looking at on this cut quality here is pretty darn clean. Now this part I went over twice, and this part I went over once. And you can see where I went over it once, there's some scragglers. But we're looking at this material right here, 4 or 5 foot tall, at least 3 foot tall. It's thick. I think that's pretty darn good cut. I've probably got about 5 acres of mowing to do before I finish this review video, but I'm only going to show you about 2 or 3 more spots that are particularly tough. One is just down this narrow strip on the pond bank that always makes me nervous I'm gonna lose the mower off into it. Then I've got a really steep slope with a couple of angle changes and a ditch on the top side of the Quonset hut. And we'll just highlight some of that, then we'll get into the breakdown of the design of this machine. Now, I really don't mind mowing, but I get busy and I get caught up in things, and sometimes I don't keep up with the mowing, and at least not as much as my wife wishes I would. And she's told me a few times that she'd come out and mow the yard if I'd get a lawnmower with a steering wheel. Well, we've got one today. So this area behind the Quonset hut is really hard to mow because it's got a real steep run up this way, and then it's steep on this slope over here, and it's got a flat spot, and then there's kind of a valley in between. And I put sod in here to get the grass started, and I didn't get the pieces butted up tight against each other, so it's super bumpy. On the way up is really steep, on the way down is steep. And this part over here is too steep to mow with the tractor. So I had some deals where I was switching mowers. I sold a mower and bought a mower, and I let this go, and now it's so bad I've been afraid to touch it. So we're gonna see if I can handle it with this guy. So you can see the top of these blocks are 2 foot tall. I've got this steep ramp up to it where the mower tends to bottom out. and then it's hard to get up close to the building here. And there's kind of a little ditch here, and there's a ditch over there, and it's hard to see it, but this is super steep, and this is just a tough area to mow. All right, so I'm done mowing for today. Let's get into the details about this model of mower. And the first thing I want to read to you is the price of this mower. Now, everything I say about this mower applies to a wide range. If you like the steering wheel design that I'm about to show you on the zero turn, you can get that from a mower all the way down into the low-end residential, like $3,000 zero turns, $4,000, I don't know where, but you can get a lower end zero turn mower all the way up to one bigger than this that runs $20-some thousand, and it has like a gyroscope platform and dual rear wheels and like an extreme machine. But this is one of the largest zero turns that they make. Here is the information from Jake at the tractor yard. The mower that I have right here is a Pro Z 960 SKW. It's a carbureted Kawasaki FX 1000 35 horsepower engine. The retail on this unit is normally $15,299. That's the minimum advertised price. $15,299. They've got one more of these available, and if you call the tractor yard, you can get it with an $800 discount for mentioning my video. Knock off 800 bucks right there. But this specific mower is now used. It was brand new when it was delivered here. And I said that wrong earlier. I thought this was already a demo mower. The reason it has brand new blades is it's a brand new mower. So now that this mower is used and it's got 2.5 hours on it, you can get this mower for $13,000. If you want this exact mower, $13,000, just call the tractor yard. Now going forward, they're only gonna make this mower in a 38.5 horsepower EFI, which is electronic fuel injection, obviously. And the retail on that will be $16,300. So if you wanted this mower after the carbureted versions are gone, the minimum retail price will be $16,300. But I bet if you call the tractor yard, you might be able to work out a little bit better price. So I'm hoping that there's no one smart enough to recognize this mower is marked down $2,300 because I mowed with it one time. Because until someone steps up and buys it, I get to use it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why I like it. So the obvious thing about this mower is it has a steering wheel. It is 4-wheel steer. Any other zero turn is rear wheel steer. Push this one, you go further with this wheel. Your joysticks operate your hydraulic drives. On this mower, turning this wheel does not operate your hydraulic drives. Pushing the pedal right here, forward and reverse, operates your hydraulic drives. Up to a point. As I turn this wheel, until I get to about 80 degrees, both of the back drives and both tires are getting full power that I'm giving from the pedal. Once I get to 80 degrees, then they start to engage differently. and these are synchronized to work together. So whenever I want to make a turn, as I make a sharp turn, I'm not tearing the ground because it's synchronized to make this one go one direction and this one the other to make that turn. If you think about a regular zero turn, it's like a shopping cart and the front wheels just flop around. When I get to the end of a row, my wheels are this way, my front casters. And as I try to do a 360 spin, the first amount of energy that these drives generate as they push is used to turn those wheels around on the front. And it's wasted energy, and you're trying to coordinate the way you use the handles to not tear up the grass. And most people are using a 3-point turn with a zero turn mower. The name of the mower is zero turn, and they're not using it to make 0-degree turns. They're making 3-point turns to not tear up the grass. If you saw how this thing was running up there, I'm a rookie at using it and still just getting the hang of it, but I was able to make those 0-degree turns without ripping up the grass. So that's a huge advantage. The next advantage to this, if you're on a zero turn and a mosquito lands on your neck, you're trying to grip both of those handles depending on how they're designed. See if you can hold both of those handles while you swat your neck, or your wife calls, or you have a drink in the cup holder and you want to drink, or your eyebrow itches. It's two-handed operation all the time. Running this is like driving your car. You can put your elbows on the seat rest and just one hand, no problem, and it basically just goes straight on its own. As you mow with this thing, it's super easy to make straight lines. A lot of these mowers and small tractors have adjustable seats, but they're spring adjustment. This actually has an air compressor. Now, if you've never used one, the difference between an actual air ride seat and the other type of adjustable tension seats is dramatic. That is a huge upgrade. So when we lift out our tray here, what we get access to is our steering system. These are synchronized. As I turn the steering wheel, it turns this center gear right here through a power assist, an electronic power assist. It's the same power steering system used on a four-wheeler or an ATV. Now these levers right here, they run off of that, and this runs that rear hydro. So when you get to that 80% mark, it engages the hydro. Up until then, it's moving, but it's not actually engaging the hydros. So this gear system starts and stops your hydros for you, and it does it in an optimized way for perfect turning. My next question is, man, you must wear a lot of these out. But he said they don't. There are no moving parts here while you're driving in a straight line. And this isn't under high tension. This is kind of loose. All it does is rotate it. These are fixed cables here, and they just rotate that gear, and it's not under pressure. When I'm evaluating a machine and deciding, do I like this machine, do I like this company, I like to think about how much energy do they put into the smallest details. Do they say, everyone has a deck height adjustment, let's just do what everyone else does? Or do they say, what can we do that's at another level? How can we make this better? And Cub Cadet on this mower did everything, every little thing to make it better. So let's look at the deck height. So here we have a lockout system. If I drop that in, then it's not coming down no matter where I put this. It allows you to take this out, and this can be for transport or loading on a trailer. You've got the deck all the way up. You take that out, put it in this position, it's unlocked. Now, a lot of times these deck heights will go like 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, all the way up. And so you have a long amount of travel with your foot to raise and lower that deck. What they did here was they put multiple scales. This one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.75, 2.75. And the way that works out is there's only a total of 5 inches of travel to go through all those settings. I can go 1, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1.75. These are very clearly marked and easy to see. You're never gonna have trouble getting your pin in and out. Very nice, simple setup. Nothing special. Most of the brands have a nice deck setup, but they put thought in this, not just laying all the sizes out separately. There are a different engagement point on each separate scale. I mentioned the air ride seat, but there's actually a 3-part system that takes the bounce and the stress out of riding this mower. So the first is the air ride. The second is a suspension built under the seat that actually allows it to move side to side and up and down. The third component of leveling out your ride is that this is a floating front axle. If I lifted the front of this up in the air, that axle can pivot like this on a big bolt through the center. And obviously there's a bearing on there too that allows that to pivot. And then it's got rubber stoppers that take the cushion out of that. Now by cushioning the front axle, it smooths out your ride without making your deck gyrate. You get a nice steady deck movement as this axle drops and that one comes up. It kind of expands that uneven terrain across the width of the mowing area and gives you more of a smooth cut. And I can actually see that happening as I mow. As I bring up the next point, I think this is going to be really controversial, but there are no grease zerks anywhere on this mower. Not a single one. And at first, when you hear that, they're like, oh, I can't grease my machine, it's gonna fall apart. Well, I thought that was my very first thought, is that's a problem. I thought it was bad to not have grease zerks, but here's the explanation I was given. When they designed this machine and they sent them out around the country for testing, a lot of complaints were about the grease zerks. That people don't just love greasing their machines. And here's what happens if you try to make a machine without a grease zerk and give it a real warranty. This machine has a 3-year unlimited hour warranty. You can buy this machine as a commercial operation and run it 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and it doesn't matter how many hours you put on it, it's still under warranty for 3 full years. Now, how can they do that without greasable bearings on all these different things? Well, let's think about in this axle. You could put a bushing in there. And if you put a bushing in there, the only way it's not going to wear out is if you grease it. What if you put a high-end bearing in it? The only way to guarantee this machine for 3 years, unlimited hours, without a grease zerk is to put a high-end bearing in it. That means investing more up front in an effort to reduce the maintenance time that your customer spends. And it's not just true for the spindles, it's true all around the tractor. And if you look on it, you'll see these little spots here. There's kind of a raised dimple with a black insert filled in with it. They're all over the place. That's where the grease zerks used to be before they got better bearings and put in here. I already said that I kind of judge a company by how much thought do they give to the little things. Well, here's a little thing. Every mower I've had, I have torn this chute up because they're hard plastic. And I catch them on one thing, snap them off. Rip them, tear them. This is a super thick, that's like 1/2 inch thick rubber almost. You flip it up, it stays up. You flip it down, it stays down. I like that so much more than your traditional grass flap. And it's just a grass flap, right? But everything counts, everything matters. Next thing we've got here, these guards, you just take that slightly loose and that pops off. The size of this pulley is larger than normal, and the larger the pulley, the more contact you have with the belt and the better traction you get if this is a little bit wet. Less belt slippage based on the oversized pulleys. Next point, this is 7-gauge steel, which is the same thing John Deere uses on their deck. And there are companies that even use a thicker gauge. But do you need a thicker gauge steel over here? No. What purpose would it serve for this spot over here to be thicker gauge? What they do here is 3 layers of 7-gauge, which is close to a 1/2 inch thick steel under this bearing with 6 mounting bolts. They make the part that matters super strong, including triple layer rolled over front lead edge on the deck. Another point of distinction is typically these are tube frames. This is a die-cut steel frame. It's just a thick plate of steel which allows them to bolt directly into it instead of welding onto a bracket that then they attach things to. So the die cut design adds strength and it improves the attachment points. You've got super easy deck adjustment. You have your 4 hangers, like most decks have 4 hangers, but then you've also got a torsion bar back here connecting the deck and spring tension pulling it forward. So this deck, when I try to move this deck, it moves the whole mower. It's rock solid. If you look up here, we've got dual fuel tanks, saddlebag on each side. Most of the premium mowers that I've done demos on have had the dual fuel tanks. You've got one gauge here that reads both tanks separately. And this one has kind of a unique feature that your on-off switch for each gas tank's right up here. So right now, both of them are pointed up, so it draws fuel from both gas tanks. You can turn them both down, your fuel is shut off. You say, I want to run this one, but not that one. Where that's kind of nice is if you decide that you like to run your machine out of fuel when you shut it down so that it's not drying in the carburetor, you can kill the machine by shutting off both fuel tanks. Very nice feature. So this is 7 gauge. It's triple layer 7 gauge here. All of these vertical supports here and across here and across here are welded in multiple places across here. So they're adding your strength by having a vertical joint on them. These spots right here allow for deck float. Now the deck's super heavy. It's not gonna just bounce around and affect your cut quality, but it can come up if you hit something. You're not gonna be jammed in as if this was solid. Additionally, from here, I can see that there are rollers all the way across the back of the deck, anti-scalp rollers, just like you've got the smaller anti-scalp rollers in the front. This thing has 35 horsepower. Any mower in this price range is gonna have a lot of horsepower. My Hustler X1 was phenomenal. It had 29 horsepower, and I always felt like that was plenty. This has more than that, and you can really feel it when you kick it into gear. One thing that the rep was explaining to me is that if you're trying to drive in a straight line and you're tinkering like this with your 2 handlebars, you push forward, you're going 100% with both drives. Then you're at 90, 100, 90, 100, and this one's going 95, 80, 95, 100, and you're constantly speeding up and slowing down those hydraulic drives that put power to your wheels. And you're actually wearing them out quicker by fighting them all the time. When you're driving this in a straight line, you push the pedal down, and both drives are running at 100% power the whole time, and you're driving this, you're steering it like a car. You don't need to alternate power around, which the 35 horsepower this engine puts out is splitting that power between running the deck and running the 2 hydraulic drives. And as you're constantly messing with those drives, you're fluctuating the power that's going to your deck. So it's a lot more consistent cut by having a consistent drive mechanism. Now I've already made this a long video and talked a lot, and I haven't even got into the most important thing. The number one reason that this mower is better is it's going to handle a hill better than pretty much any other mower on the market. I've ran a lot of 0-turn stand-on mowers, which do a great job on hills. I've owned a couple of those and actually put a lot of hours on those 2 mowers. This will do a lot better job. I've already done it and tested it, not just on the hill I showed, but on my ditch, which I'll show in a future video. But if you think about it, when you fight a 0-turn and it's trying to slide down on you, the nose wants to roll down, and the only way to correct it is to way overcorrect with one drive, and then you're trying to propel your mower that while it's fighting a hill, it's fighting to cut grass, it's fighting the gravity on the front nose, and you're trying to do everything with one wheel and somehow go in a straight line. It just doesn't work. With this, you direct your travel with the steering wheel, and you keep constant pressure to your 2 final drives, your 2 hydraulic drives. It's just dramatically better. And if you really have challenging hills that are hard to cut with anything else, you can get the dual rear wheel version of this and really kick some tail. Personally, I don't care about striping a lawn. The rep told me that it's a lot easier to get perfect stripes with this because you can literally stay perfectly straight with your elbow on the armrest and just sit here and it'll just drive straight. Your wheels are staying tilted straight. I mean, you might be making minor tweaks, but it's easier to go in straight lines and get those stripes. One thing I didn't mention, right here's your parking brake. Parking brake's on, parking brake's off. But if you want to roll this machine right there, you just popped all the pressure off the hydraulics and I can roll it right now. Pretty easy to roll actually. But most of the time that stays tethered to your parking brake. You got a choke right here. So far I've started it 4 or 5 times. Haven't had to use the choke, but it's there. Same thing I said earlier, the great companies think of everything, including the ROPS. So pull out on that pin, it's got 3 locations it can drop into. We drop this down to here, we say I wanted it halfway, like that. It can lock all the way down halfway or all the way up. You've got a nice thick steel bumper on the back with a hole in it where you can hook something, hook and pull a little cart or something. Normally I don't like pulling anything with a zero turn. They don't have any torque, any traction. Now I haven't gone to this point yet. What the rep told me is that this thing is dramatically better on wet ground than any other zero turn. The ability to steer the front wheels and put full power to both rear wheels just gives you a lot more traction. And they can pull a regular zero turn that's stuck in the mud and pull it out with this one in the same mud. So I find it to be an impressive machine. I find it to be comfortable to drive. I think I'm gonna get one of those steering wheel spinners like I use on my tractors, put that on there to make those turns a little faster so that you don't have to grip the wheel twice to make a turn. So my dad bought a Cub Cadet zero turn about 10 years ago. And he's harder on his equipment than I am. He abuses it. He does a lot of mowing. They own multiple properties. And he has done basically no maintenance on that. He's actually kind of lazy about his maintenance. And he says he's probably only changed the oil 2 or 3 times. It's still using the original set of blades and he only sharpens them once a year. He's beat that thing up. He actually had a tree fall and land on the mower. He's still using it 10 years later. So if you have an opinion about the cheaper homeowner grade Cub Cadet mowers, I don't have an opinion on those. I've never had one. But don't take that opinion on the $1,500 or the $2,500 mower that you've had in the past and project that onto this. They engineered this from the ground up to be a professional commercial mower. And the fact that it has a steering wheel is not a gimmick. It's a way to get better power and more control. So that's my thoughts on it. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.